So initially, I had recorded a video of myself, or audio rather, of myself watching the trailer for Jaadugar, which in Mongolia, and reacting to it, some of my thoughts at the end, and then that video got blocked by YouTube. So I'm redoing the video. I can't watch it. I recommend if you haven't already seen the trailer for this, please go and watch it and come back here. I'm just going to talk a bit about what I saw, my thoughts, and a bit of some ranting about some other topics. But yeah, just to get into it, this is the trailer that was released for Jaadugar, a Witch in Mongolia, an upcoming anime which will be out July of this year. It's based on a manga or a comic of the same name. For context, if you're not familiar, which you may not be, because I had also never heard of this before. This is a manga series, a comic series based on an actual historical person. It's a Persian Muslim woman who, I don't want to spoil too much of the manga either, but she's living her life. Their city gets attacked by the Mongols, and she gets captured as a slave, and then she has a really deeply eventful and interesting life, a remarkable person, a remarkable life. She rises to great prominence in the Mongol Empire, and that's all I'd say about that. If you're interested, either read the manga or check out a history book. But what's remarkable to me about this series, and especially watching the anime, it's really just like a breath. So the trailer for the anime, rather, it's a breath of fresh air. So the art style is gorgeous. The background, the landscapes, the building, it's just like a very unique, gorgeous depiction of the medieval sort of Islamicate cityscape. Bit of a tongue twister there. And it's heartening to see as a Muslim, as someone from a Muslim country, from a Muslim civilization. It's just beautiful. It's beautifully well done. It feels like a very faithful representation of life in these places, in this history, without making it a caricature. Like you barely ever see medieval Islam. Let's do an anime about that. Let's do a show about that. And whenever there is a depiction, they make sure to make it weird, right? Like obviously we were all hateful, angry psychos. But this is pleasant, right? There's women wearing hijabs, there's men with turbans and beards, and they're just living their lives. They're pleasant, happy, normal people, as far as we see in this trailer. And then again, I actually went and read a chunk of the manga as well, and I'm overall quite happy with it. It's just wonderfully done. And what also stands out, other than the content being so unique and fresh, because you don't really see this kind of thing, also the art style, right? It's a more unique art style. It doesn't look, like nowadays everything looks the same with anime. Everything's just weird in general, like just anime slop. It's not like that. It has its own distinctive style. It's cute, it's nice, it's pleasant to look at. I think it suits the subject matter as well. It's not just ripping off either generic anime or ripping off Studio Ghibli like some are wont to do. And it was really fun just to watch the trailer, and I'm excited for the anime to come out. It also does a great job of making just the manga, but even just this trailer, of making you feel sort of like you're in the world, not just in terms of how well the cityscape is done, the people are done, but just its approach to the cultural and intellectual context, right? This is a Muslim Persian woman growing up in that culture before her life is completely uprooted. And what the author of this manga has done perfectly is demonstrate and celebrate the value that Islamic civilization places and especially used to place in knowledge and knowledge production, right? You see her being told how important it is to study and learn and gain knowledge, and then you see her finding these old books and valuing them. And it's a really beautiful thing to see Muslim culture and Muslim history being done in such a pleasant and honestly correct way. And this is a part of history that people are unfamiliar about, not just this specific woman's history in her life, but in general, right? Like it was Muslim civilization translating these books, like Euclid's Elements that we see here, preserving these books, discussing these books that pulled Europe itself out of the Dark Ages. So knowledge and, human knowledge production was preserved and propagated and furthered by Muslim hands. And it's really great to see someone who understands that and is sort of seems to be celebrating that. And you especially see this here. Like you see, funnily enough, this Japanese person write this manga, which is now going to be a TV series, which understands and celebrates this sort of centrality of knowledge and that thirst for knowledge to Islamic civilization, and put it front and center and said, hey, this is a good thing. Yeah, I loved watching the trailer. I love that this exists. I'm excited to see where the manga goes. Hopefully, there's no bad surprises along the way. And yeah, it was overall great to see. Which brings me to the next half of this video, which is my rant. I take tremendous issue with, first of all, actually, the manga was written by a Japanese manga artist who goes by the name Tomato Soup. So my huge problem, really, is there's something wrong in the world when a Japanese woman, who perhaps has never left Japan, I don't know for a fact, but perhaps not, sets out to write a manga. And she's creative enough to come up with like, hey, let me do like a historical piece about this Persian Muslim woman. And I'll be as faithful to the culture and the civilization and the history as I can. And I'll do a good job and it'll be interesting and people will want to watch it. And yet, us as Muslim Pakistanis, we make our first hand-drawn animation studio and we make our first hand-drawn animated movie. And it's just, first of all, the art is just a rip-off of Ghibli. It's not a unique or indigenous art style that reflects our traditions, right? Why does it feel like the animation style in Jaadugar is closer to a Persian miniature painting than the art in Glassworker, right? Why does the setting in Jaadugar feel more representative of me as a Muslim and as a Pakistani than that of the Glassworker? If I showed the Glassworker, like a clip from the Glassworker, to let's say I walk down the street in New York, I grab a random person, I show them a few scenes from the Glassworker, and I show them a few scenes from Jaadugar, which do you think will they guess was made in Pakistan? Right? There's something wrong. Why is it that when we set out to make this thing and we get people excited, we say, hey, this is Pakistan's first hand-drawn animation, why can't it be Pakistani? Why can't it represent our history, our civilization, our culture in any meaningful respect, right? I look at the Glassworker and yeah, you can say, oh, this character has a dupatta on, whatever the hell. Please watch my other video on this if you haven't already. I go into more detail about my thoughts on the movie there. But why is it that I look at the Glassworker and it feels like I'm looking at Britain with like 4 or 5 brown people? It doesn't feel like Pakistan. It doesn't feel like Pakistani, even in a fictionalized sense. But I feel like I'm being better represented by Tomato Soup. Why is Madam Tomato Soup san in Japan doing a better job of representing me than my own people? And I don't want to target specifically Glassworker or Mano Animation Studios. And again, no hate to the artists. You guys did great. This isn't on you. But this is just like a general problem I see with our media and our creative minds in general, which is, first of all, they're not that creative, okay? Look at this manga and then look at Turkey, right? They have TRT. They make dramas. What are their dramas about? They make shows on Sultan Suleiman, which was hugely popular in Pakistan. They make shows like Ertugrul, hugely popular in Pakistan. They make shows like Yunus Emre. They make shows on Hayreddin Barbarossa. They look at even K-dramas. How many shows a year do they make which are based on medieval Korean history? Look at shows like Jumum, right? Like they're doing all of this culturally relevant, historically relevant, civilizationally relevant content, and people love it. Not just people in Turkey, not just people in Korea, people around the world love it because people love seeing other cultures. They're intrigued and interested by things which are faithful to other cultures. And people also like doing it, right? People like representing their own cultures. Why don't we? Why can't we do that? For the love of God. Why does every other drama have to be like, जी दूसरी शादी हो गई है, जिन से शादी हो गई है, छुप के शादी कर ली है, ससुराल, मतलब, why are there no shows about Muhammad bin Qasim and Raja Tahir? Why are there no shows about the Delhi Sultanate? Why are there no shows on the Mughal? You know what? Why in the last 20 years, 15 years, however many years, has no one been like, hey, Game of Thrones was awesome and hugely popular. Why don't we do a Mughal Empire Game of Thrones, right? Why is India only the ones making shows based on partition? Why aren't we doing that? Right? What is wrong with our writers and our producers that they can't get behind a project, and our writers and our and all our creative minds, that they're not doing this? Why is it that, like, even if you have some talent and you get some investors to back your initiative, why do you, first of all, Pakistan isn't even famous for glass. You know what I mean? Why wasn't it the leather worker or the woodworker or something? I don't know. My point is, why do we? I had an English teacher once in Pakistan, and she said, "तुम लोगों का मसला ये है, like the reason you're bad at English or bad at Urdu is some of you will think in Urdu and translate it to English, and some of you will think in English and translate it to Urdu, rather than just thinking in the relevant language." And I think the problem we have is that we don't think in our own terms when we're making content. We think of an idea in especially Western terms because we're copying the West, right? Look at the Glassworker style. It's just a copy of Ghibli. There's nothing unique about it. There's nothing memorable about it. It's just a Ghibli dupe, and therefore it's worse than Ghibli. Again, no offense to the artist. It's not your fault. If you're copying something, you'll never be as good as the thing you copy. But we copy something else, and then we're like, how can I make this just a little bit more Pakistani, right? How can I satisfy a few people and say, look, we did this in Pakistan? We're not saying, okay, we're making an animation. We're Pakistani. What do? We first copy, and then we say, how can we put this in our own setting? And that's why it's not genuine, and that's why it's not good. If we set out and said, okay, I want to make an animation, what's an idea that's authentic to where I'm from? And work from there, right? And then, sure, yeah, look for inspiration and influences. A great artist steals, whatever, right? But start with an authentic idea and then work on it, rather than come up with an inauthentic idea and then slap like this thin veneer of "Ji hum Pakistani," for we did this in Karachi, right? What? And again, this is not for any one person nor for any one institution or company or whatever that. This is an us problem. This is an everybody problem. Why can't we just think first in our own terms and then produce something? Right? Even my examples, to be honest, I had to give an example of, like, oh, Game of Thrones in a Mughal context. Like, honestly, no. Even my example should have been, hey, there's such a rich history in the Mughal Empire. Literally, read about any of the Mughal emperors. We all know the famous ones, right? Read about from after Aurangzeb onwards. There's such interesting things that happened. Why is no one like, hey, I'll read a history book. Oh my God, this is so interesting. Why doesn't somebody make a TV show about this, right? Why aren't we thinking in these terms? But anyways, that's enough of my rant. Again, the trailer looked awesome. I'm excited for the anime. I hope someone who works in the creative fields in Pakistan watches this and agrees, and maybe this makes a difference. But anyways, let me know your thoughts, guys.